In the shadow of Babylon's final stand, Ira faced not men, but nightmares. As dawn broke, the Persian army feigned retreat, luring him into a deadly ambush. From behind their lines, a horde of enchanted beasts, lions, tigers, leopards, erupted, summoned by the dark magic of Ninmagus. Ira fought with unmatched fury, his Blaze Frost celestial sword carving trails of frost through flesh and flame. The beasts came in waves, claws raking, fangs snapping, but Ira stood firm, encased in layers of magical ice alone atop a battlefield of blood and bone. When the beasts fell, the true horror began. Monstrous abominations burst from beneath the earth, slaughtering Babylon's civilians from within. And in that darkest hour, Ninmagus appeared, more shadow than woman, and struck Ira down in a savage duel. Left for dead, his body broken, Ira's soul drifted into the void. But death denied him. Revived by a mysterious ancient force, Ira rose reborn, mightier than before. With his sword blazing cold, he shattered Ninmagus' sorcery and cast her into the abyss. Though scarred and wearied, Ira emerged not only as a warrior, but a legend forged in frost, blood, and defiance. The royal palace of the Persian Empire stretched endlessly in marble and gold, a monument to Cyrus the Great's power. Tonight, its grandeur seemed muted, cloaked in the despair that filled the air like a heavy shroud.
3 times Babylon has defied me. 3 times I have failed.
In the dim flicker of a lone oil lamp, Cyrus the Great stared into the flame, haunted by visions of defeat, fallen soldiers, burning siege machines, the unyielding walls of Babylon, and the defiant eyes of Ira.
Have I grown weak? Have the gods abandoned me?
The door creaked open. In swept Ninmagus, dark-robed and gleaming-eyed, her presence chilling the very air.
Cyrus, the weight of defeat sits heavy upon you.
What do you want, Nim? I have no patience for riddles tonight.
Not riddles, solutions. Babylon can still be yours.
Another strategy doomed to fail.
No, this time we strike at their heart, we strike at IRA.
Ira!
The name hung heavy in the chamber, carrying all the weight of Cyrus's humiliation.
Lure him out. Threaten what he holds most dear, his people.
Use the people of Babylon as bait.
Exactly. Once separated from the city, IRA will fall. I will kill him with my own hands.
And Babylon itself?
Its treasures, its soul, all will be ours. The people will serve a higher purpose.
Though unease prickled at him, Cyrus tasted the lure of victory.
How will you achieve this?
With the beasts of the wild, they will burrow beneath Babylon's walls, unseen. They will tear the city apart from within.
You trust these monsters to bring down a fortress that armies could not.
With my magic, they will be unstoppable.
Silence fell. Cyrus weighed the madness against the promise of victory.
Very well, but if you fail, Ninmagus, the consequences will be dire.
Fear not, Babylon will fall, and with it, our resistance.
As night deepened, Cyrus sat alone, haunted by the echoes of his pact with Ninmagus. Doubt gnawed at him, whispering that he had abandoned everything he once stood for.
Have I fallen so far that I must consort with monsters?
The faces of fallen soldiers crowded his mind, their silent accusations cutting deeper than any blade. He shook his head, fighting to silence the questions that threatened to unravel him.
I am a king. Babylon must fall, no matter the cost.
Yet even as he vowed to see the plan through, a whisper within him warned, some victories demanded a price no soul could afford. As dawn broke across the encampment, Cyrus felt the shadows inside him deepen, a shadow not cast by any sun. Beneath a starless sky, at the edge of a vast ancient forest, the air thickened with forbidden magic. Silent incantations filled the air. The earth trembled beneath her feet. The ground rumbled, trees shivered, an ancient primal force stirred. From the black heart of the forest they came, creatures of nightmare, lions with fiery manes, shifting tigers, shadow-born leopards, crushing bears, spear-horned rhinoceroses, ivory-tusked elephants, and cunning massive gorillas. Their eyes burned with an unnatural hunger, drawn by her call.
You have answered my call. Tonight, you shall feast upon Babylon's flesh. Tonight, a city will fall.
The beasts growled, their bodies taut with anticipation, the promise of blood stirring their ancient hunger.
Go, wait at the forest's edge. When the time comes, strike without mercy. Tear down their walls, devour their hope.
As one, the beast vanished into the night, shadows among shadows, leaving behind only the lingering echo of their coming storm. Ninmagus watched, her eyes gleaming with dark triumph. But her work was not done. Deeper horrors awaited in the mountains, monsters that even time had forgotten. The mountains rose like jagged teeth, cloaked in mist and shadow. The cold wind howled through the narrow passes, singing a song of death. Before a pair of ancient stone pillars carved with forgotten gods, Ninmagus stood alone. Power radiated from the sealed entrance, ancient and defiant. Dark energy had swirled around her as the symbols on the pillars had begun to glow. Pulsing with eerie light, the earth groaned, stone cracked. With a deafening roar, the seal shattered and foul air spilled forth from the depths. Ninmagus descended into the lair. Narrow, winding tunnels slick with moisture and glowing with sickly green fungi. The air reeked of rot. Dark energies pulsed through the stone, growing stronger with every step. In the heart of the mountain, a vast cavern stretched out before Hirn. Jagged stalactites loomed overhead. At its center, upon a massive stone throne, sat Nim-Tarsir, the monster king, wreathed in shifting darkness.
You dare disturb my slumber, mortal. Speak, before I feast on your bones.
I offer an alliance. Help me destroy Babylon, and its souls, its treasures, will be yours.
Why should I care for the cities of men?
These souls are different, infused with divine essence. Power enough to challenge the gods themselves.
Nim-Tarsir's eyes blazed brighter. Temptation clawed at the monster king's ancient heart.
And what of the gods? They will not stand idly by.
They are occupied. They will not intervene until it is too late.
Silence stretched between them, heavy as stone. Finally, Nim-Tarsir spoke.
Betray me, and I will tear you apart.
We seek the same end, Babylon's fall.
Ninmagus emerged from the lair. Behind her, the monsters stirred, ancient forces of destruction ready to be unleashed. The beasts gathered at the forest's edge. Lions, tigers, gorillas, bears, rhinoceroses, elephants, their eyes burning in the darkness. With a gesture, Ninmagus set them in motion. The ground trembled under their march. Toward Babylon they went, unstoppable, unseen. Alone, Ninmagus stood, her gaze fixed on the city's distant lights, a cold smile curling her lips. The time had come, the time for revenge. Dawn crept reluctantly over the horizon, its gray light smothered by thick, heavy clouds. A cold wind swept across the walls of Babylon, carrying the scent of distant fires and the promise of bloodshed. Ira stood alone atop the walls, the blaze frost celestial sword in his hand, its cold blade catching the faint morning light. A pulse of power thrummed through him, steady but shadowed by a growing sense of dread.
Something stirs in the darkness beyond our sight.
Below him, the usual bustle of the city was stilled, the silence thick with fear. Beyond the walls, a small force of Persian cavalry gathered, dark-armored and mocking. No vast legions, no siege engines, only a fraction of what should have come. One rider broke from the group, galloping forward with a sneer.
IRA, protector of Babylon, have you fled? Are you cowering behind your walls like a frightened child?
Ira remained silent, his grip tightening on his sword.
So this is the great IRA, no warrior, just a child with a toy sword.
Another rider joined, jeering. The insults grew, circling the walls with venomous laughter. The Babylonian soldiers stirred with anger, but Ira raised his hand, signaling them to hold.
They seek to bait us. We will not be moved.
Ira turned his gaze to the distant horizon. The Persian campfires still burned, but there was little movement, no signs of a true assault. Only the chilling stillness of a trap waiting to be sprung.
Cyrus is too cunning for a simple attack. There is more at work here.
A sense of malignancy pressed against his mind, dark and heavy. more ancient than the battlefield below. Ira thought of Ninmagus, the dark sorceress. Her gaze seemed to press from afar, cold, calculating, patient.
The true danger waits in the shadows.
The Persian riders fell silent, uneasy as if sensing a shift in the air. Their leader gave a signal. They turned back toward the main force.
Enjoy your last moments. IRA. Soon, Babylon will be dust and memory.
They galloped away, swallowed by the distance in the gathering storm. Ira turned to his men, reading their fear.
We hold the gate. We do not give them what they want. We endure.
The soldiers nodded, their faces pale but determined. Ira stared out over the horizon. The Persian army began a slow, deliberate advance. The Blaze Frost celestial sword pulsed in his hand, a silent promise. In the rising light, with the tension stretched to breaking, Ira steeled himself. The battle for Babylon was about to begin, but the enemy was not only men, it was darkness itself. The first light of dawn bled across the barren land, casting a sickly pall over the plain. On the walls of Babylon, Ira watched the Persian army crumble, retreating in apparent disorder. Suspicion flickered in his mind, but the warrior's instinct flared stronger.
We pursue. We finish this.
The gates of Babylon groaned open. Ira, atop the black iron horse, led the charge across the plain, the Blaze Frost celestial sword gleaming coldly in his hand. Behind him, the soldiers of Babylon followed, their hopes pinned on a final victory. As they neared the Persian lines, the chaos parted like a curtain. From the opening, a wall of beasts emerged, lions, tigers, leopards, and more eyes burning with unnatural light. Ninmagus' trap had been sprung. The beasts surged forward, a wave of fury and hunger. Ira reacted instantly, unleashing a wave of cold from the Blaze Frost celestial sword, slowing the onslaught but not stopping it. Two lions clamped their jaws onto Ira's arms. With a cry of pain, he swung the icy sword, freezing the beast's maws shut. The black iron horse reared, striking down approaching creatures, the ground freezing under its hooves. The beast recovered quickly, their ranks swelling. They encircled Ira and his steed, eyes glowing, muscles tensed for the kill. With each swing, the Blaze Frost celestial sword thickened the air with freezing mist. Beasts slowed, some froze solid and shattered, but more kept coming. A terrible silence echoed behind Ira. He turned briefly and saw the slaughter. His men were dead, the battlefield soaked in blood. Rage and grief burned within him. The beast pressed harder. Ira retreated step by step, carving a desperate path through the endless tide. Pain racked his body, his armor torn, blood freezing on his skin. With a roar, Ira slammed the Blaze Frost celestial sword into the earth. A shockwave of ice exploded outward, freezing the closest beasts in jagged, spiked prisons. A second, thicker layer of ice encased him, shielding him from the relentless attack. The remaining beasts, bears, rhinoceroses, wolves, smashed against the frozen barrier. The black iron horse fought beside Ira, each kick and breath freezing or shattering foes. Ira raised the sword once more. With a final desperate strike, he unleashed a third shockwave, the frost so intense it burned. Ice erupted, impaling the beasts and sending freezing fog rolling across the battlefield. The beasts faltered. Fear overcame the dark magic that bound them. One by one they fled, leaving a wasteland of shattered ice and frozen corpses behind. Ira stood alone amid the carnage, the Blaze Frost celestial sword heavy in his trembling hand. Frostbitten, bloodied, barely standing, but alive. Babylon still stood, and he still stood with it. The wail of a distant horn marked the dawn of a new day, a day that brought no hope to Babylon. Dark clouds brooded over the city, the scent of fear, blood, and ancient malevolence thickened the air. Ira rode hard toward the city, heart heavy, breath misting in the frigid air. But even as he approached, a terrible sound reached him. Screams from within the walls. Beneath Babylon, monsters had burrowed unseen, bursting forth to slaughter the helpless. Twisted beasts of nightmare tore through the streets, their forms a cruel mockery of life. Blood stained the stones. Civilians fled, soldiers fell. Babylon the Indomitable was crumbling from within. Ira raced for the gates, but a blur of darkness struck him down, hurling him from the black iron horse. Dazed, bleeding, he looked up. Ninmagis stood before him, dark and regal, victory gleaming in her cold eyes.
Did you think you could protect them? IRA, you will die knowing you failed.
Ira struggled to rise, reaching for the Blaze Frost celestial sword, but a wave of dark energy flung him back.
Your strength is nothing. Your sword, a relic. You are nothing.
Summoning his last strength, Ira recalled the Blaze Frost celestial sword back into his hand, and he unleashed a freezing blast, which shattered against Ninmagis's unseen shield. She struck him down again, a blow like a hammer against his chest. Pain blinded him. His sword slipped from his grasp. His body refused to rise.
It's over. IRA, your city will burn. You will be forgotten.
Darkness closed around Ira's fading sight. The last thing he saw was Ninmagis's cruel smile. Ninmagis turned to signal her final victory, but a sound froze her blood. A roar, ancient and terrible, split the heavens. The black iron horse stood over Ira's body, its eyes blazing with fury and grief. Power surged through the beast, raw and unstoppable. The earth trembled, the sky darkened, the Persian army faltered, fear gripping their hearts. The black iron horse reared, its hooves smashing the ground, releasing a primal, deafening roar. Persian soldiers clutched their heads, falling to their knees, broken by the sound. Ninmagis staggered, blood dripping from her ears. The ancient magic she had wielded crumbled under the fury unleashed. Desperately, she lashed out with dark energy, but the black iron horse absorbed it, growing stronger. Her strength failed. Fear seized her heart. She fell to her knees, broken and helpless. The roar ceased. Silence fell, deep, aching, and absolute. The Persian army was shattered, their ranks broken, their beasts frozen in the icy wake. The black iron horse stood alone, mourning, its breath misting in the cold over Ira's fallen body. In the stillness of death, Ira drifted in an endless, silent void. The world he had known faded, only darkness remained. And then, through the void, a golden light appeared, faint at first, then growing. It warmed him, filling the emptiness with purpose.
You are not dead, Ira. You are stronger than you think.
Who are you? Where am I?
You are between life and death, but your journey is not over. You are more than a warrior. You are a force of balance.
The words stirred the dormant strength within Ira. He focused, letting go of fear and pain. Light flared within him, and with it, resolve. On the frozen battlefield, amidst the shattered bodies of beasts and men, a pulse of golden light stirred. Ira's eyes opened, his breath returned, his wounds healed. The Blaze Frost celestial sword glinted nearby, calling to him. He rose stronger than ever as Ninmagis watched in disbelief.
Impossible. You were dead.
You underestimated me. I am more than a man. I am a force you cannot defeat.
In desperation, Ninmagis unleashed a wave of dark energy. The shadows roared toward Ira. But Ira stood firm, the Blaze Frost celestial sword raised high. Frost met darkness and shattered it. Ninmagis shrieked in fury and fear.
I will not be defeated. I am Ninmagis, master of the void.
Ira's gaze was unyielding. He hurled the Blaze Frost celestial sword, the blade a streak of icy light cutting through the sky. The sword struck, true. Ninmagos's magic crumbled. The cold pierced her soul. Shadows recoiled. The dark energy that once empowered her now betrayed her.
No, I am eternal. I am Ninmagis.
But the void pulled her back. Piece by piece, her form dissolved into darkness. Her final scream echoed into nothingness. The Blaze Frost celestial sword blazed brighter, sealing the abyss she had called home. Ninmagus was no more. The darkness lifted, the balance restored. Smoke rose thick above the ruins of Babylon, merging with the mist to shroud the devastation. The proud city lay broken, its streets choked with rubble, blood, and ash. Ira, astride the black iron horse, rode hard into the heart of destruction, the Blaze Frost celestial sword, a beacon of icy defiance. The gates hung shattered. The monsters feasted on the dead. Ira raised the sword high and unleashed the frost. Waves of cold swept the streets, freezing monsters in their tracks, turning savage beasts into crystal statues that shattered beneath the horses' hooves. Yet the destruction was vast. Fires raged, screams echoed, Babylon burned. Inside the palace, King Nabonidus watched in terror as monsters battered the great doors. The treasures of Babylon's glory seemed pitiful against the oncoming doom. Soldiers had fallen, hope seemed lost. And then, a blast of freezing wind, the doors burst open. Ira charged through, sword blazing, breath of the black iron horse clouding the hall in frost. One by one, the monsters fell, frozen, shattered. The tide turned within the palace walls. Nabonidus stood trembling. Ira turned to him, his voice steady through exhaustion.
We must secure the city. There is still hope.
The city is in ruins.
Then we rebuild. First, we survive.
Ira gathered the remaining soldiers. Worn but not broken, they rallied behind him. The final battle for Babylon began anew in the burning streets. Through smoke and blood, Ira led the charge. Each swing of the Blaze Frost celestial sword unleashed cold death. Each stride of the black iron horse shook the earth. The monsters faltered. The unstoppable tide turned. From a ruined structure, a shriek cut the chaos. A monstrous titan bore down on a group of civilians, women, children, the old, huddled, and helpless. Ira charged. The Blaze Frost celestial sword cleaved the beast's head with a cry of vengeance. A shockwave of frost froze the creature mid-attack. Ira placed himself between the civilians and the chaos, scanning for threats. For now, they were safe.
You're safe now. Find shelter. Stay hidden.
Thank you, Ira.
Ira turned away without hesitation. The battle was not yet done. The city still needed its defender. The last of the monsters had fled, burrowing back into the shadows, and the battle had ended. Babylon stood broken. Smoke and silence filled its shattered streets. The dead lay where they had fallen. The living emerged, pale and hollow-eyed. Ira, exhausted and blood-stained, stood at the center of the devastation. The Blaze Frost celestial sword dimmed at his side. The black iron horse, silent and solemn, stood by him. Dawn revealed the full horror. Breached walls, ashen streets, frozen corpses, rubble. The survivors gathered in small groups, clinging to each other amidst the ruins. There was grief and a flicker of stubborn, aching hope. King Nabonidus, battered and broken, approached Ira.
We owe you everything but Babylon.
Babylon is not just stone and walls. Babylon is its people. We will rebuild.
The king, burdened by sorrow, nodded. Together, Ira and Nabonidus moved among the wreckage. Soldiers rallied. Civilians wept but stood. The dead were mourned. The living began to work. Ira walked the broken streets. Every face he passed was a scar on his soul. Every ruin a silent accusation. In the shattered palace, he stood alone among the frozen remains of monsters. The frost lingered. So did the grief. From the smoke, Belshazzar emerged, ash-streaked and bloodied but unbroken.
They look to you now. Ira, they need hope.
They need both of us. Together, we will rebuild.
She took his hand. Together they faced the ruin. As sunset bled across the ruined sky, the survivors gathered in the square. Amid the ashes, amid the broken stones, hope began to kindle. The king's voice rose, trembling but proud.
Babylon has fallen, but it has not died. We will rebuild. We will endure.
A murmur of resolve stirred among the crowd. Ira stepped forward, sword at his side. the black iron horse standing behind him like a sentinel.
We have lost much, but we remain. As long as we endure, Babylon endures.
The people, battered but unbroken, answered with silence and with determination. As the fires died and the stars returned, Ira and Bel-Shalti-Nana stood side by side. The ruins of Babylon stretched before them, wounded but alive. In the stillness, in the cold ashes of devastation, hope began to rise. Night wrapped Babylon in its heavy shroud. The stars watched, distant and indifferent. The fires of war had died, but their ghosts lingered. Amid splintered wood and ash, Ira stood alone, his hand resting on the cold hilt of the Blaze Frost celestial sword. The weight of failure pressed against him. The marketplace that had once burst with life was now a grave of memories. Ira's breath misted in the air, his heart sinking under the burden of guilt. The silence of the ruins whispered accusations. In chasing the Persian army, Ira had left Babylon open to darkness. Now he faced not an enemy, but the bitter truth of his own decisions.
I fought, I bled, I believed, and still I failed them.
Determined to face judgment, Ira rode through the skeletal streets toward the palace. The halls of kings were now broken tombs, heavy with smoke and loss. Every step echoed with memories. Every step was heavier than the last. Ira entered the king's chamber, his head bowed.
I had a feeling you would come.
I have come to admit my failures, Your Majesty. I left Babylon vulnerable. I beg you to relieve me of my duties.
Nabonidus turned, his face worn but his eyes steady. There was no anger, only sorrow and understanding.
You fought for Babylon. You bled for it. You did not fail us. Without you, there would be no city left at all.
But the people, I failed them. I cannot bear the weight of this.
Babylon is more than walls. It is its people. It is those who stay and rebuild. And we need you, Ira. We cannot afford to lose you now.
Ira's clenched fists trembled. The guilt clawed at him, but slowly Nabonidus' words found their way through the storm inside him.
You are not infallible. You are human. But you are also hope, Ira. You are strength.
Ira lifted his head. The shadows still clung to him, but a new fire began to stir beneath the weight.
I will not fail you again.
I know you won't. Together, we will rebuild.
As the king and his protector stood side by side in the ruined palace, a new resolve took root. The city lay in ruins, but Babylon still breathed, still endured. And where there was endurance, there was hope. And where there was hope, there was the promise of rebirth. The grand halls of Persepolis stood hollow and cold. Where once songs of triumph had echoed, only the whisper of despair remained. Cyrus the Great, ruler of the mightiest empire on earth, stood alone, haunted by defeat.
I led them to their deaths. Their blood stains my crown. Their screams my throne.
In the throne room, Cyrus faced the mirror. At first, it showed him only his haggard reflection, but then the image wavered, and a darker version of himself stared back.
You are no king of men. You are a conqueror. Act like one.
Who are you?
I am you. The part you buried when you chose mercy over dominion. I am the strength you forgot.
The reflection leaned closer, the glass rippling like water. It spoke a single name, a name heavy with promise and peril.
Bree, the key to your final victory.
What is Bree? Where can I find it?
Bree will find you when you are ready to pay the price. Prepare yourself.
Cyrus felt the old fire ignite within him, but it was not the fire of glory. It was the cold hunger of desperation, fueled by rage, pride, and fear.
I will not be remembered as the king who failed. I will tear Babylon from the earth itself if I must.
The mirror stilled. Only Cyrus's reflection remained, but the shadow's echo lingered. The conqueror's path had been chosen, and there would be no turning back. In the empty halls of Persepolis, only one certainty remained. Bray was coming, and when it arrived, Babylon and perhaps the world would tremble. The The Persian camp stretched across the plain, rigid and disciplined, yet haunted by the ghosts of 4 bitter defeats. This was the 5th march upon Babylon, but this time something deeper stirred in the shadows, something ancient and terrible.
This is not another campaign. This is my reckoning. Ira will fall. Babylon will burn. Even if I must rip open the sky to make it so.
In the heart of the camp, Cyrus's command tent pulsed with torchlight and tension. As his generals waited for orders, pain struck. Not physical, supernatural. The whispers he'd once invited screamed now with rage. His vision blurred, his body betrayed him.
Your Majesty, you're bleeding. His eyes. Get help now.
The darkness turned against its summoner. The power Cyrus had bargained for began to devour him. Even as he lost consciousness, the last word in his mind was a warning, not a command.
Bree was never mine to control.
He woke in the silence of the royal palace, curtains drawn, breath shallow, his body broken not by blade, but by the backlash of ambition.
Father, you collapsed. The generals, your soldiers, they wait for your word.
They must wait longer. Babylon cannot be touched. Not with Ira still breathing.
The mighty king once feared across continents, now feared the very name of Ira. He spoke not of tactics, but of fate, of divine walls and immortal guardians.
Ira is not mortal, not like us. The darkness recoils from him. I tried to wield it, and it has marked me.
Then what are we to do?
You will not march. You will not raise a sword against Babylon. Promise me.
A prince born to conquer now stood at a crossroads. Before him lay his father's final plea, a request to end the war without glory.
I promise, Father, I will not seek Babylon while Ira stands.
The empire's heart beat slower. A king who had ruled with fire and sword now faded in silence. His legacy, one of conquest and cost. The wind whispered his name as his hand fell limp.
Lead with wisdom. Lead with strength. The empire must endure.
Cyrus the Great, conqueror of nations, perished not by blade or enemy, but by the very shadow he had summoned. His final battle was not on the field, but within, and it was lost. The silence of Persepolis was absolute. In the streets of Persepolis, mourning veiled the city like a funeral shroud. The cries of the people echoed off marble walls. Their king, their conqueror, was gone. Yet his legacy loomed larger than grief, etched into every stone and soul he had ruled.
A king is not measured by how much he takes, but by what he leaves behind.
The gilded bier carried Cyrus through the streets. Generals marched with lowered heads. Citizens lined the roads, scattering petals and prayers. At the tomb of Cyrus, silence fell. His body, cloaked in silks and surrounded by the symbols of empire, was laid to eternal rest within the stone vault.
I will carry your crown, Father, but I will never wear it lightly.
Within the great hall of Persepolis, Cambyses too was crowned. His father's sword lay across his knees, a reminder of the weight he now bore. The lords of Persia bent the knee, but their eyes sought in him the spirit of Cyrus.
I must rule not as a shadow, but as a flame of my own making.
In the quiet of his chambers, Cambyses gazed toward the west, toward Babylon. He remembered his father's final words. He remembered the dread in Cyrus's voice when he spoke of Ira.
Not while he breathes, not while the gods themselves guard his blade.
Cambyses turned his gaze elsewhere. Egypt, rich and ancient, beckoned. Roads were built, reforms were enacted. The empire's lifeblood flowed stronger with each decree, not by bloodshed, but by wisdom.
Our power lies not in walls torn down, but in bridges we build.
And so Babylon remained untouched, a citadel not conquered by armies, but honored by a king who knew the cost of defying fate. The city thrived. Ira watched from its highest tower, vigilant and eternal, the silent guardian who had turned back the tides of empire itself.
You kept your word, Cambyses, and for that, Babylon lives.
Years passed, empires shifted, kings rose and fell, but the names of Cyrus the Great and Cambyses too endured, whispered in awe, carried on the winds across deserts and seas, not as mere conquerors, but as rulers who understood the fragile art of power and the even greater art of restraint. Beyond the ruins of time, beyond the dust of ages, Cyrus's voice remained. Not in the clash of armies, but in the hearts of those who remembered. Power was not to destroy, but to build. Legacy was not in victories won, but in worlds left standing.
Lead with wisdom. Lead with strength. Endure.
The wind swept through Babylon, unnaturally cold. The ziggurats and walls stood silent under a morning sky. Within the palace, King Nabonidus, frail and dying, lies on silks, surrounded by incense. Beside him kneels Belshaltinana, her face streaked with tears. Ira stands nearby, silent and heavy-hearted.
Belshaltinana, come closer, my child.
I am here. Father, I am with you.
And you, Ira, come, my son.
I am here, my king.
Nabonidus took their hands with trembling fingers.
My children, time is an enemy no sword can slay. My hour is near. Ira, you have defended Babylon bravely. I ask you to take the crown.
My king, I am but a protector, not a ruler.
You have the heart of a king. Ira, that is enough. And one more thing. Marry Belshaltinana.
Father,
Not for love alone, but for Babylon's future. Promise me.
I will do as you ask, Father.
With a faint smile, Nabonidus exhaled his last breath. The city mourned as Nabonidus was laid to rest. His tomb sealed the end of an era. Ira, clad in royal robes, ascended to the throne before a silent crowd.
Do you, Ira, swear to protect Babylon with wisdom and strength?
I swear it, before the gods and the people.
The crown was placed upon his brow. A subdued cheer rose. Babylon celebrated. Within the palace, the atmosphere was somber.
Tonight, duty binds us, not hearts.
In the grand hall, Belshaltinana waited, veiled and ethereal.
We do this for Babylon.
Yes, for Babylon.
The high priest recited the ancient vows.
In the name of the gods, do you, Ira, take Belshaltinana as your queen?
I do.
And do you, Belshaltinana, accept Ira as your king?
I do.
Their hands were bound in silk, but their hearts remained apart. Festivities roared, but Belshaltinana was distant, her gaze toward the temple.
I must return to the gods.
I know, your soul belongs there.
I will always be grateful, IRA.
She kissed his cheek and walked away, disappearing into the dawn mist.
I will protect Babylon, even if I must do so alone.
Alone, Ira faced the future, king of a city, but alone. Under King Ira, Babylon reached new heights. The city became a beacon of strength and prosperity. Ira focused first on rebuilding the army, forging it into a disciplined and unstoppable force.
From this day forth, you are not just warriors, you are guardians of our legacy. Stand strong, stand united.
Soldiers clad in gleaming armor trained relentlessly. The city walls, rebuilt and fortified, stood as near impenetrable barriers. Babylon's gates, adorned with carvings of past glories, warned any who would dare threaten the city. As security returned, commerce thrived. Trade routes, once dangerous, now teemed with merchants.
There is no safer market than Babylon, no richer one either.
The Euphrates bustled with boats. Docks overflowed with exotic goods. The city's coffers swelled, funding new public works, temples, gardens, and palaces that dazzled the world. Babylon's power spread beyond its walls. Neighboring nations, once hostile, now sent emissaries bearing tribute.
May Babylon's light never dim. We seek friendship, not war.
Ira's legend grew, his presence enough to deter any thought of conquest. Under Ira's rule, Babylon entered a golden age. Peace and prosperity reigned. Culture flourished in the secure streets of the city.
We have built a haven in a world of chaos, but vigilance must never sleep.
One night, an unnatural stillness gripped Babylon. In the grand palace, Ira stood before an ancient mirror, disturbed by the dark mist swirling within.
What sorcery is this?
The mist parted, revealing a twisted reflection, Ira's own face, but corrupted.
I am you. I am the darkness you cannot escape.
I have conquered shadows before. I will conquer you.
Bree is coming, the harbinger of ruin. You cannot defeat him.
I will face whatever darkness comes. Babylon will stand.
With a cry of resolve, Ira raised the Blaze Frost celestial sword and shattered the mirror. The mist and darkness faded, but the warning remained, lingering in Ira's mind like a shadow. Babylon stood strong, but somewhere in the unseen depths, a new threat stirred, and Ira knew his battle was not yet over.